we are going to be looking at ensuring inclusive access to remote learning during this very unprecedented digital time in education. This really has changed the dynamic of what we do as teachers, especially those of you who are special education teachers or those of you who support students who have learning differences. And so today we are going to look at some free tools that can help to level the playing field of remote learning in today's digital age. Just a little bit about me. I am a current special education teacher. I work for Cherokee County Schools in Canton, Georgia. I work with students with reading and math disabilities and students with emotional behavior disorders and emotional disturbance. I am an intensive academic interventionist. And so the realm that we're looking at here in accessibility is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Just some fun facts about me. I actually used to be a competitive fencer. I did that all the way through high school and into college. I did one time have lunch with Mr. T. I was out in LA and a friend of mine knew him. And so how many, times do I get to say I had lunch with Mr. T? And also I did for a summer go on tour with a boy band as their in-house tutor for their children. And that was a very fun experience. Over here in the yellow box, please give me a shout out on Twitter at Pittman's Place. I would love to stay connected with you after today's presentation, especially to help you use these tools with your students to kind of get started, anything like that. So as well in the yellow box is my email address and my LinkedIn. Please stay in touch, and please know that after today's presentation, if you do need support, please reach out to me in one of these ways, and I am happy to help. So a quick overview of today's sessions. We are going to be looking at Microsoft accessibility tools that are available for remote learning. The tools that I'm going to show you today are free. They are built into Microsoft products on the desktop, online, and in the app. We're also going to be practicing using the tools in different settings. So the way today's presentation is going to go is I'm going to talk for just a minute, show a quick demo, and then we're actually going to go in, and I have set up different ways for you to experience the tools during today's presentation. And then after each section where you have some get to know the tools time, we'll come back for questions, and then that's how today's presentation is going to go. And then we will look at providing resources for getting started with these tools for your students. So let's kind of get introduced to each other. I am very much a Marvel person. That is my classroom theme. It has been for some time now. And so in the chat box, if you would just answer this question, do you like DC or Marvel better? I feel like this would be a very good conversation. Everybody has their do's and their don'ts in the superhero universe. So if you will just click that chat box option and then type that in, and we'll take just a second to do that. And while you're continuing to answer that question, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the chat box while you're answering that question. Do you prefer DC or Marvel? So today we're going to use the chat to communicate with each other. And like I said, there will be plenty of opportunities to come off of mute, ask questions going forward. And so please put any questions that you might have in the chat box during the presentation. Robin is our wonderful moderator today, and she will let me know as questions come up so that as we're looking at things, we can get your questions answered in real time. But again, please stay on mute during the presentation until we come off. So to go ahead and get started, we're going to look at this this access point of equity versus equality for remote learning. So in looking at equality, that's kind of providing everyone with the same access, like a device. If everybody just has a device, you're kind of leveling the playing field. But equality is ensuring that that device works to meet the needs of the user. So you're taking it that step up. You're making sure that the access is just as equal as the sameness. And these two, they're not one and the same during remote learning. Yes, having access to a device equals that sameness, but being able to use that device to meet the needs of your students, that's how we're going to ensure equity, making sure that students can access the content in a way that's meaningful to them, making sure they can access content based on the needs of the student. Excuse me. And so the first tool that we're going to look at is a tool called the Immersive Reader. The Immersive Reader is a built-in text-to-speech reader that's built into Microsoft products. It can be used on a computer device, on a mobile device such as a tablet, and even on a device such as a mobile phone. And the great thing about this is that the user experience on this tool never changes. They're going to be able to access the same tools that we're going to look at, and they can do it across multiple devices. And as long as there's an internet or a data collection, this tool is at their fingertips. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go into a demo, and we're going to look at the tool in real time. One of the great things too about the Immersive Reader is that it has a lot of built-in features. So you obviously have that read aloud feature where it's going to read text aloud. You can increase and decrease spacing. You can increase and decrease text size. You can change the font. You have a multitude of color overlays. When you're looking at different grammar options, you can actually break words apart by syllables. You can highlight parts of speech. There's a built-in picture dictionary that's going to be able to build context. And then there actually is word and whole document translation in this tool. So at this time, I'm going to exit out of this presentation, and I'm going to go over to a document, and we are going to look at the Immersive Reader in real time. So what we're looking at here is OneNote Online, and I'm not sure, one second. There we go. So OneNote Online offers you a wonderful multitude of ways to get students different information, real live text. You can put PDFs, you can put printouts, you can put all kinds of things within a OneNote. And today we're going to look at the Immersive Reader within the OneNote. So you can see here I have a document. It has pictures in it, and this one is all about geography. And the Immersive Reader is always going to be under the View tab that's up here in your ribbon. It doesn't matter if it's in OneNote, Word, PowerPoint, it's always going to be under the View tab. And I love that because it's consistent for the students so that they always know I can always find this tool under the View tab. So when you click the View tab and you click on Immersive Reader, it's going to overlay a skin on top of that page. So when students are looking at this text, it's not going to edit the text. It will not make any changes to the text. It has actually laid the reader over top the text through recognition software. And so now let's go in. If you just want to have it read aloud to you, you have that option down here. Once you hit play, you can come in here and you can change the speed at which you want to hear the text read. You can change the voice. And I did that with the simple click of a button. Now I want to get a little more in depth with some of the tools. So whenever you see the AA here in the Immersive Reader, those are going to be your text preferences. And so when you click here, you're going to have a multitude of different options. So you can see here, I can increase or I can decrease the text size. I can increase and decrease the spacing. This is especially powerful for students who have visual crowding issues. They can literally click the button and the words have been spaced apart in order to negate a lot of that visual crowding. You do have 3 font options down here: Calibri, Sitka, and Comic Sans. Sitka was specifically designed by Microsoft for individuals with dyslexia in mind. And then you can come down here and you can put the color overlays. So you have the traditional with the dark and the light. And again, I'm turning these on and off with a click of a button. Now that I've set my text preferences, I want to go and I can look at some grammar options. So the grammar options, I always tell my students to look for the magic wand. When you click on the magic wand, this is where some magic will happen. If you turn on the syllables option, it will actually break words apart by syllables You can see here where it's put a visual cue that each of those is a different sound. You can also turn on parts of speech. And you can also customize the experience for the user. So maybe I don't really like this blue. I could go in and I could make it purple. And then maybe I'd like my verbs to be yellow. And so the student can customize this part of the experience for themselves. The one thing I really love about the grammar options in the Immersive Reader is that for my students, grammar is an area where they struggle, especially with identifying parts of speech. So a lot of the times when we use this, I'll go in and I'll say, turn on the reader, and I will have them highlight all the parts of speech. The other thing that I have them notice is that the words that are not highlighted are those sight words, those words that just need to be learned, that don't always follow a spelling pattern. And so I'm going to turn off these options. And now we're going to look at some reading preferences. I always tell my students to look for the book. The first option you have here is line focus. So that's actually going to turn on to where the students are seeing either 1, 3, or 5 lines at a time. Think about when students traditionally used a ruling reader. So they would have that window where they were adjusting the text and everything above and below was blocked. That's exactly what this is doing. So this would be your traditional 1 sentence view at a time, 3 sentences, and 5 sentences. Microsoft also partnered with Boardmaker, which is a company that works to make visuals for individuals that have communication needs. And so I have the picture dictionary turned on here. So if I click on Earth, I'm going to get a picture of Earth. Valleys, mountains, rivers. So this is asking, are you talking about something that's alive, or are you talking about where someone lives? So it also builds context within the pictures as well. And by far, one of my favorite tools is going to be this translate option. So I'm going to drop down here and I'm going to choose a language, and I'm going to choose Spanish. And you can see here now, when I click on the word landforms, you can see here it is in the original language. And here it is in Spanish. So I can actually go in and do a word-by-word translation, or if I come back to my reading preferences here, I can actually turn the whole document on. And so you can see now that my original document was in English, and now it's been translated into Spanish, and the read aloud feature still works. And so now the text that I had can be accessible to students who maybe English is not their primary language, and it will read it in both the original in English and also in Spanish. And then if I don't want to see the translation anymore, I can literally turn that option off and it is back to its original form. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the reader so that you can see my document is still exactly how it was. It's not going to make any changes to your text. It's not going to make any changes to formatting. But do notice that what it did do is it took out the pictures. And that's because the reader's primary focus is to engage people in the text. And so it takes a lot of that visual crowding out when you're looking at pictures. And so it's just going to focus on the text that's found within the passage. So I'm going to switch back over to our presentation. And so now that I've done the demo, I'm going to share my screen again, and I actually have a OneNote notebook for you to go in and use the Immersive Reader in different settings. And so what you're going to do, and I will show you this in a click as well, but you're going to head over to our Teams channel, make sure that you're in our presentation, ensuring inclusive access to remote learning, and then there's going to be a link in there for an Immersive Reader sample. I'm going to show you in clicks how to get there as well. So if I'm here and I go to my Teams, you can see here we have ensuring access to remote learning. And when you click there, we're going to drop in a link here for you can see here, Robin just dropped it in. If you click on this, it's going to take you to the OneNote notebook. So if I click here, it's going to take me directly to that notebook that I was just in. And so there are a couple of things that you can do within this notebook. You can actually turn the immersive reader on and listen to it switch between languages. The immersive reader will also, I will go in and fix that. Oh, there it is. It will also read text that's in picture, so you can see this is a photo. We do have that original geography document that I demoed from. And then there is a PDF in here, and it will actually go in and read the PDF. So what we're going to do is I would love for you to go into the channel and click on that link. Again, Robin just posted it here in our channel, right here. And we're going to take 10 minutes. And we're going to go in and please go in, click buttons, use the immersive reader. Again, the immersive reader is going to be right here under the View tab. So on your home ribbon, View, Immersive Reader, and then feel free to click around with the different buttons, play around with the different features. We're going to take 10 minutes to do that, and then we're going to come back and we're going to look at some questions before we move on to the next tool. So I am going to go ahead and start our timer. And so feel free, click on that link, play around with the immersive reader, really dive into that experience on how it reads text from different options, whether it be live text on the page, whether it be a picture, whether it be a PDF, and really just explore it. And we'll come back and then we'll answer some questions. When we get ready to come back, I will signal us with a timer that will ding, and that will let you know to come back, and we're going to continue the presentation and questions. While you're playing around with the reader, I'm absolutely loving everybody's responses to the DC or Marvel. I love hers with the dancing Hulk. That's awesome. Amanda's was also great with the Thor gif. Oh, Herb jumped into Mr. T. All right, guys, we're about halfway there with our time. Keep exploring. Please drop your questions if you have any while you're exploring into the chat box. We will also take a moment after the explore time if you have a question and you'd like to come off mute before we move to our next section. Okay, Christy, I see you. Office Lens isn't working for me. The other thing with the Office Lens is it may also be connected to your internet connection. And it also did, when I opened up the notebook, it did take a minute for that, for the picture to show up. Amanda, I see your question too. It may be that it is based on an internet connection because this is in the web. So it could just be that the connection isn't strong enough. I'm going to keep our timer running, but I'm going to head over to the notebook just to check out these questions as they are coming in. Okay. Yeah, it may be the connection that we have here on the online. Let's check the PDF. So Amanda, the Office Lens, it could be the connection, but the PDF is working. I was able to get that one open. And let me see what we can do about this guy. Okay, Lori, I see your question about the geography text. So the link that opened should have opened you to an external notebook that's in the web browser to be able to use today's tool. So make sure that you have it open on the web. If you are running a different version of Windows, I can show you how to do an add-in if you're still running OneNote 2016. We can look at that at the end during our questions and troubleshooting. If you're using the desktop version, this link should have opened you, however, into a web version. Okay, Lori. Let's see. On the geography. Let's see. Lori, it could just be the internet connection that's working with the different types of line focus. And sometimes it also depends on the device that you're using. For the Office Lens, we will go in and look at this specifically here in just a moment about the different types of media that you can upload to use with the Immersive Reader. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go back to our presentation. Since we've been answering questions, I am going to go ahead and just go forward because I also want to show you the reader in the Edge browser. So the features in the browser work the same as they do in a Word doc, how they're going to work in the OneNote. And there's a built-in button, so you don't even have to do anything other than just be in the browser. And it's great at reducing visual distractions. So just a quick overview here before I demo. You can see here I just have this open about Earth Day. You can still do your read aloud options. You're still going to be able to have the option do those text preferences and those color overlays. You can actually, again, change the language, and all of that is available. So I'm going to click out and go over here, and we're going to look at the Immersive Reader in Edge browser so that we also have time to play around with that in the browser, just like we did in this OneNote. So I am going to click over to here. And I just went to MSN Kids, and I just found, actually this article is very interesting, about the man who swims with sharks. And you can notice up here, so I'm just up here in the address bar where you would type in wherever you're going. And all the way over here to the right, you can see the book with the speaker. That's the key for the Immersive Reader. I always tell my students, when you're on the Edge browser, make sure you look for the book with the speaker, because that's going to take you to where you need to go. And so when I click that option here, you can see it overlaid the reader on top of this web browser. But notice what you don't see anymore. So if I go back and I turn the reader off, I'm not seeing any of this. I don't see any of this. I'm not seeing any of the ads down here. I'm not seeing any more content. The only thing that I'm going to see when I turn on this Immersive Reader, and again, I'm right here in the address bar, and I'm going to click right here on the Immersive Reader icon, is I'm just seeing the text. Now, it does leave the picture in here, which it didn't do in the OneNote, and that's because it's building context around this text. And again, I can go up here to my options if I want to have it read aloud. Here are my voice options here. I can change the speed. I can also go down here. I can change the voice, but I can also change the language again. And I love here about how it has that natural voice, because this does sound a little bit more like a natural voice rather than a computer-generated voice. I can also come in here and do my text preferences. So again, I could make the text here really big. I could decrease the text spacing just how I had seen it when I first opened it. I do have all those color overlays here. And then I do have those reading preferences again. I can turn the line focus on here. So I'm going to come down here into the text so I can see the 1, the 3, or the 5 lines at a time. And then I still have my grammar tools over here. So I can still have these words broken apart by syllables. I'm going to come back to text preferences and make my text just a little bigger. There we go. And I can still turn on these parts of speech. And I can still show the labels. And again, if I don't want to see any of these options, if it's just too much for me visually, I can turn them off. But I can also still customize that experience of how I want them to learn. So now my nouns are going to be red instead of blue. And again, I can turn the syllables off right there. This has been an incredibly helpful tool, especially for my students, because we are now in a completely online environment. And if I have information that I need them to get to, right when we left, we were finishing actually working on a small research project. At home, I was able to create a video to say, hey, remember, you can use the Immersive Reader at Edge to help you find the information for your project. I've also been using this with my 4th grade co-taught students to meet that read to accommodation for any work that they have that's in the browser that they might need in order to complete an assignment. And again, when I'm done with this Immersive Reader, I'm just going to click over, and it's going to take me back directly to the web page that I came from. Again, this is just overlaying on top of text, both on the web as well as in OneNote and Word. So I'm going to come back here to the PowerPoint for just a moment. And again, I'm going to show you how to click in here. I have actually, Robin's going to drop that link into our Teams channel. So again, just make sure you're in Teams, you're in Hours, and ensuring inclusive access to remote learning. And then there's going to be a web link that will take you to that article that I was just on. So if I open up my Teams channel here, Robin has dropped it right down here into the bottom. You can click on this, and it will take you to this web page that I was just on. And then again, when you're in the address bar up here, you're going to find the Immersive Reader icon right over here. Please make sure that you're in the Edge browser, though. This feature is supported in the Edge browser. It is not supported in any of the others. And so we're going to switch back over here. We are going to take some time to explore that, and then I will continue to look and answer questions as we kind of check this out. The Immersive Reader in Edge browser has been one of the most powerful tools for me right now during this remote learning time, especially having to do a read to accommodation to multiple students and multiple grade levels. And so it really is, if you have access to the Edge browser, it's a wonderful tool to have during this remote learning time to ensure students really have access to content that they need to have read. All right. So see, Robin, thank you so much. Answering your questions as we go. So Christy asked about the Immersive Reader available on my laptop but not my desktop. You can actually download the Edge browser to a device. You can also download the Edge browser for iPhone and Android as well. So if you don't see it on a desktop, you can actually go in and you can add that. I actually use the Immersive Reader 2 on my mobile device. We are at a Chrome browser. Okay, Amber said, if we get the new version of Edge, can we get it to show? So the version of Edge that I have that I just showed you, this is a consumer version, so it's the most updated version. And the Immersive Reader was already there and open. I didn't have to do an extension. So Christy, there's also an option too, if you don't see, if you're not seeing the icon here, if you hit the 3 ellipses over here that are going to be in settings, you can actually drop down, and here's the read aloud as well. It may be in a different area of your tab, but mine's right here in the read aloud, and then you can actually turn that on. And it'll give you the voice options if the Immersive Reader isn't opening for you right now. So you still have that option, the 3 ellipses. If you drop down, wherever the read aloud option is on your menu, yours might look different from mine, but you can also just access the read aloud as well on top of the Immersive Reader. All right, I'm just going to switch back over here. And the Immersive Reader by far is my go-to workhorse right now, especially because as a SPED teacher, when my students, if they were in my classroom, a read to accommodation would obviously be provided by me. But while my students are at home, I have to figure out how to ensure access to those accommodations while they're working on content. And so Immersive Reader has been very helpful. The other thing that I have found, and I will show you later in the presentation, how we record PowerPoints. I actually recorded a quick training video and sent it to both my students and my parents. And then that way they had that resource to go back to as well about how the features work. So Amber asked about, can you take it out of the ellipses menu so it's visual? Amber, are you talking about the read to accommodation so that they're not having to click on the ellipses? So in order to get to that read to accommodation, you do have to click on the ellipses. My students that are using this primarily right now are second grade students. And I just always tell them to look for the 3 dots, and then they look for that when they hit the 3 dots here. They look for this A that looks like it's speaking, and that's how they get to the read aloud option if they're not using the Immersive Reader. And like I'm using these with second grade resource reading students. Okay. While you keep exploring, just to make sure that we have enough time to get to the rest of the content, I'm going to go ahead and keep going with the PowerPoint. We have some other experiences to have with different tools, and so we're going to keep moving forward. The next thing we're going to look at is the immersive reader in forms. I cannot tell you how much forms. Oh, and Robin dropped into the chat that you can hit Control-Shift-U on the keyboard to also access that read aloud. Thank you so much for that, Robin. So going back to forms, forms is a way to do student assessment that has built-in accessibility. So that immersive reader that we've seen in OneNote, we've seen it in the Edge browser, we're also now going to see it in forms. And the great thing about forms is that you can have different ways to assess student learning, and I'm going to show you some examples and then show you how the immersive reader works within forms. They're very easy to create, and they're also going to give you real-time feedback. For me, we started remote learning on March the 20th, and this by far has been my workhorse as a special education teacher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one that I have created that you'll be able to go in and look at and kind of play around with. We'll look at the real-time feedback from the form that you're going to answer, and then I'll show you some options of how I've used it in order to do accessible data collection during this time as well. So I am going to come out of presentation. And here's the forms that I have open. I actually use this for data collection for my students. So this is a passage that my students actually completed, and then I copied it over here so that you can look at the different options. Let me, 1 second, open this. I wanted to show you some real-time versions as well. Go ahead and get logged in here. Okay, so with forms, you can see here, and we'll go in and we're going to look at some of these. I mean, this has basically just been my entire workhorse for this entire time. You can see here all the forms that I've made since we started. But if I click here on this reading comprehension one, and I look at the preview option, you can see that the second that I open it in preview, you can see that the speaker with the book comes up. And so this is going to be the immersive reader. So again, when I click on this, it's going to open the immersive reader. 1 second, get rid of those guys. And you can see here that it has the title. These are the directions. And here was the passage that I had put in. So again, I can click here. And maybe I don't want to start there. Maybe I'd like to come down here. And that's one of the great things I love about the immersive reader too, is that you can choose just by clicking on the word where it's going to continue to read, to start to read. And so students aren't having to listen to the passage again and again in its entirety. They can actually go in and say, oh, I know that the answer to that passage or the answer to that question is probably in this part of the passage. They can click here and it'll start reading here. I still have the options to change the voice settings. I still have all of my text options here, my grammar options, and then we have those reading options like line focus, picture dictionary, and the translation. So what I usually do on the forms is I put the passage up here where the title would go. And then you can see here when you come down here, oh, there it goes, it popped up again. I'm going to click on it. And now it's just going to have the question and the way that the answers were laid out on that question. So again, if I turn on the red 2 option, it's going to read this to me and read the questions. But if I click off of this, and this is the thing that I think is most important when using this with students, it looks exactly the same. So if I know feathers and wings is my answer, feathers and wings is going to be in the exact same place as when I turned on the immersive reader and when I turned it off. So they can go in and they could say, yes, I know feathers and wings is the answer, and move on to the next one. And notice with the questions that the reader pops up individually because it's only going to read those questions in isolation. So when you click on this, it isn't going to open up every single question that that's on the page. It's only going to open up each one at a time. And especially for doing access to a read to accommodation for classroom activities. My co-teacher and I have very much been using this. If we have any text that needs to be read, where comprehension is going to be assessed. So let me come back over here. And then we will look at some of the real-time feedback and what that looks like after we kind of explore it. So again, I will show you the click on how to get there. We're going to head back to our Teams channel. Just make sure you're in the ensuring inclusive access. And then there is going to be a Forums Immersive Reader practice. So if I come over here to my Teams channel, you can see right here, Robin has dropped it into the chat for us. So when you click on this, it's going to open that for you. And again, she dropped it right in here in the chat. And while she does that, I'm going to head back over to our presentation. We'll just take a couple of minutes to check this out. And I'm going to keep looking at questions. And thank you, Robin, again for dropping in that wonderful shortcut with the Control-Shift-U for the read aloud in Edge. And I really hope as you are using the tool that you just love it as much as I do. This has really been a very powerful tool right now during this remote learning to ensure access and equity to text, especially because students are working on activities now at home rather than when they would be in the classroom. And then someone asked about a Chrome browser school. Probably the best way to go about that would be to, because it's a web-based machine and it is a Chromebook, would be to look at some of the options around OneNote in order to get content that can be accessed from the web. So in order to get access to OneNote, if you don't have a Microsoft account, you can actually go sign up for one for free and you automatically have access to OneNote. And then you can share options from there with your students. But if you're working on a web-based machine only, that's probably going to be the best way to get access to the reader is through the free access to OneNote. Yeah, and Robin dropped in all of the Office 365 apps like Word and Excel have web-based apps as well. So when you sign up for a free Microsoft account, you go in and you're going to have the options of Word, PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, and some different options like that. Okay, so Christy is saying, click over here. Oh, not that one. Okay, let me check one thing with our form really quickly. So I am going to take this, I'm going to drop in another option of this into our chat because for some reason in this one, the reader's not popping up, but when I opened it again, I was able to get to that. So let me copy this and share it into our Teams channel. I'm going to share it right here. Let's see if that helps. I'm going to also click on this as well. Oh, okay. So click on the one that I just dropped in and the icon is opening up. I think I had a permission set, but I just opened the link I just dropped into the Teams channel and it opened it up with the icon. Should come up now. Just while we are doing that, I'm just going to head back over here. So if you're using this in Chrome, this is web-based. Forms is not like a like a software based like Word, where you could have software, you could have it online. So if you're using a different browser, as long as you have access to a Microsoft account, and again, you can sign up for one for free, then you're going to be able to access this in a different browser. And someone said, is there an extension for this in Chrome? There is not an extension for the Immersive Reader in Chrome. There is an extension in Chrome that they have a different accessibility, but it is a licensed product. So you do have to buy a license in order to access the full features. Yeah, and Nicole said that she's in Chrome and it didn't automatically show the book. Once I put my cursor over the section, the book showed up and I could click on it. So yeah, when you, I'm going to come back here over to our form. So kind of as you hover over the text, you'll see it like right here, it's going to come up over the title. Here, it's going to come up over the title of the section. And then again, as you do it on each question, you'll see it comes up individually. And that's one thing that I love about this is it comes up individually per question. So the student can just hit this one here and just see the question for question number 4. And then I'm going to switch back over to my view of responses. And so I'm going to show you one where responses were given by students so that we can kind of look at that. So here in this response, for you can see 2 students responded to this. The average time was about 5 minutes for the activity. And then I can actually see here which student got it correct, got it incorrect. And then I could even click on review answers here and it's going to give me more in-depth information. I'm not going to do that at this point because it does have my students' names in it. And so for privacy reasons. And then you can actually open an Excel form here to get that real-time data in an Excel spreadsheet as well. So while you are continuing to explore that, I'm going to look for any other questions before we move on. The next thing that I'm going to show you right here, and let me turn these taskbar. So oh, there we go. Get the taskbar off. Office Lens is an app for Android, iPhone, and by far, it is one of my favorite tools right now. It turns your phone into a digital scanner. It does all the work for you. It crops it, it straightens it, it brightens for you. Once you've got something down there in the Immersive Reader, you can upload it, the document, to different apps. You can send it an email. You can download it as a PDF, a photo. I'm going to show you today that you can convert paper into digital documents. It does have the Immersive Reader built in, and you can add text directly to a scan. And we'll come back with the forms in Immersive Reader. We'll come back and visit that. We also maybe we'll look to and see it could be an internet thing. So we'll come back to that. So no worries. We'll revisit that. I want to make sure that you get that full experience. And so for Office Lens, what I'm going to do is show you a series of videos because I can't. Office Lens is an app based, so it's going to be for phones. For phone, iPad, and Android. And so I've taken these videos, and you can see here in the very first one, so I'm right over here to the far left. This is my phone. It's going to scan this. Notice here it's processing the text. And then I have a couple of different options here. So after it scanned the text, I could save it to my photo library. I could turn it into a PDF. I use this one a lot. You can actually send it directly to your OneNote. You can turn it into a Word document, which we'll look at over here. But you can see down here at the bottom is the Immersive Reader. So it's built into this app automatically. So they took a picture of the text, it scanned it, and now you can see here that it's found the text from the picture. You can turn on that read aloud option. You also still have all the text options, so you can increase the size, the spacing, the font, the overlay. There's your grammar options, and then you can see that it shows up in real time right inside the app. And you still do have line focus, and you can still do the translation either by word or by the entire document. This is one of my favorite tools, especially because when we were in the classroom, we were actually able to use this on their iPads and do a lot of book-based research because they could actually scan the document. But also, if they have any documents that have been sent home for remote learning, like a worksheet, they can actually use this to scan the text. So again, we're still ensuring that read to accommodation for students, even though it may be a paper-based activity. By far, my favorite thing that Office Lens can do, and I'm right here in this middle video, excuse me, is it's going to take this paper-based document. So this is a paper that I wrote, and I want to be able to make some notes in it or make some changes, but it's on paper. Well, you can see here, I opened Office Lens. It took the picture. It adjusted it for me. So here it's nice and straight and bright. And then, go back here. I chose this option right here for Word. When you use the Office Lens and Word together, you do need to download the Word app from your device store. It's free. And so when I clicked on Word, you can see it's transferring my document into a Word doc. And then I'm going to click on it. It's going to open up here for Word. It's opening my document, and now you can see here that I can actually go in and type. I took all that paper was then turned into digital through the recognition, and you can even still see here where his comments were made, so that I can go in here and I can make adjustments to this paper. I can make notes, but that was a paper-based document that Office Lens turned into a digital document that I can then edit right there, either in the browser, or it will save it directly to your OneNote, and then you can open it in the web version of Word. You can open it in the desktop version of Word. And then the last video over here, if you have a student who may need to be able to do things like add text to a digital document, you can actually do that in Office Lens as well. So you can see here, I went in, I snapped the picture. It's going to do the work for me. It got the document ready, but then I'm going to hit this T up here at the top, this text feature. And you can see here that you can put text directly on top of this scan. You can change the color of the background. And if you use the pinching motion, you can actually make it bigger and smaller, which we'll see here in a second. You can change its place over on top of the document. And so if you have a student that might have a mobile device, and then you can send this with the text embedded to any of these options as well. But if you have a student who needs a text option, come back here, drag it back a little bit. So if this were a worksheet where maybe I wanted him to drop in the numbers, he could actually go in and answer these and overlay the text on top of the answers as well. So it also goes in and it looks at a different option to provide students with access to paper-based documents and answering them instead of traditionally writing, or for students that are going to type. And so that is Office Lens. I'm just looking at the questions to see. So somebody asked if the videos will be accessible. I will actually take these 3 videos. The presentation will be available, but I can put these in under our files directly too, so that you have them if you want to see them again or look at those options. So I will definitely put that in there. Oh yeah, Maria had put in that Office Lens helps me keep track of receipts. Oh, I'm telling you, especially when I know that I have to keep them to turn them in. That is a huge tool for me too, Marie. And she said, yeah, you can convert them to a PDF right then and there. My favorite thing about this tool is definitely being able to take a paper-based document and turn it into a Word document. That's incredibly helpful, especially for someone like me who might be at a staff meeting per se, and they hand me all this paper and I want to take notes on it, but I know that I'm probably going to lose that paper. That's my favorite option, is to right there in the middle of that meeting, snap a picture with Office Lens, send it to Word, and then go ahead and write down whatever I need to. So the next option that we're going to look at is dictation. And when we're looking at dictation, we're going to do Word Online. And just kind of like we've been doing with these other experiences, we're going to drop a link in there. But I just wanted to demo it for you. So this is an example right here of Word Online, and I'll go in and do a live demo as well. But you can see here, I clicked on that dictation tool. I started speaking. You do have to allow it access to your microphone just one time. And then I'm dictating right onto the page. Okay. And so let's look at that in real time. Okay. So over here, when you go in to answer this, because when we put this in and you go into practice with dictation, this is our practice page. I just asked, what is your favorite color? You can come down here. I'm just going to click. There we go, down there. And when you're on the home tab, so your home tab is going to be where you have all these font editing options here. You're going to come all the way to the far right and you're going to see this dictate option. When you click on dictate, see how it's listening. And when you start speaking, it's going to pick up your voice, period. Notice how when I needed some punctuation, I actually set it, ? And then when you're done, you can click it off. And you can see here, it picked up the punctuation of the period here. It went ahead and it did the capital letters for the beginning of my words. And then when I put ? down here, it's telling me this because that ? obviously doesn't go with a sentence. But that was a quick and easy way to do dictation. The online version is I think is the best way to start access with dictation because you can share it. Like if I wanted to share this document with all of my students and have them dictate in an answer, you could share it right here from the document. And so again, I'm in the home tab. So when you open this link, when we go back to Teams, when you open this, it's automatically going to open you to the home tab and you're going to go all the way over to the right and it's going to be dictate right here. The thing that you do have to do in order to get punctuation is you do have to say period, ? Exclamation point. You can also use those things too, like new line, that will drop text down and you can kind of go in there and play around with it. I'm going to take this part out of this document because this is the one that you are going to be using to demo yourself. And I'm trying to figure out, there we go. So, and you can click anywhere in here to use that. So if I go back to our Teams channel, hold on one second. Oh, Sarah, Amanda, there is a list of commands. I will drop that in our chat as well. So hold on one moment. Oh, and the one thing about dictation that I love is that you're providing students a different way to access their own understanding without having to type. My second graders right now are having a really hard time typing because they trying to recognize the letter, remember that some of them have to be capitalized. Remember, it's been very difficult. And so using the dictation for them to do activities and stuff during remote learning has been wonderful. So I'm going to go back over here to our Teams channel. Let's see. And I saw where Robin had dropped it in. Oh, here it is. So Robin dropped it in right here. It says dictation practice. And so when you click on it, okay, so when you click on it, you can see right here. So I just clicked on it in our Teams channel and you can see right here, I'm still on the home tab and then dictate is right over here. Please make sure while you're practicing with the dictation, just that your microphone is muted because it will actually pick up different things that it hears if you're trying to do it in this kind of remote learning environment. Amanda, I am going to go, while you guys are exploring that, I'm going to go and get that list of commands for you and drop it into our chat. There's a wonderful help article right here. There we go. All right, Amanda, I'm going to drop this into our chat and you can see here, it's going to have different ways to do different things. And there's also another one that's great to show students. So I'm going to drop that in our chat right now. And Amanda, I'm going to mention you. Whoops. Not there. There we go. Apparently hit a button. And I'm going to go get that other one as well, Amanda, while you guys do that. Oops, not that one. For that other one. Ha, there we go. Right, Amanda, I'm going to drop this one in as well. Everybody else will have access to it also if you want to click on it. There we go. All right, I'm going to head back over to our, oh, I see we have a couple of different people in here. It's a great thing too about using Word documents and things online is you can have multiple people contributing to it at the same time. And I'm just going to check our questions while we are doing that. Somebody also asked, is Dictation available in other apps as well? Yes, it is. It is available. I am actually going to show you here. We've got Dictation right here. This is PowerPoint Desktop. It is in the online version. Again, it's always going to be under the Home tab, and Dictation is always going to be the last option, no matter if you're in the desktop or the online version of the different products. And that's really one thing I love too about Microsoft is they always make it consistent. Dictate is always under the Home tab to the far right. Immersive Reader is always under the View tab. And so you can consistently go again and again and again to those places and be able to find what you need. All right. The next two things I'm going to show while you are still looking at the Dictation are some things. Whoops. Okay, my bad. So there is an option in OneNote, and I will live demo this. There's an inking replay option in OneNote. And what that means is that any keystroke you make with, if you're drawing with your mouse, if you're drawing, if you have a touchscreen device, you can draw with your finger, or if I'm gonna, today I'm gonna be using my pen because that's what came with my device. You can actually replay every keystroke that you made. It helps students to go back and access learning. So let's say maybe we worked out a math problem that they need to go back and see. They can do that from there. But also I have used this a lot with my parents, especially the parents of my math students. I will actually go in and I will show you here in just a second. I will work out a problem and then put audio with it so that the parent can see what I'm doing as it replays. And that's been really helpful for especially because sometimes the way that we present math now is different, than the way a parent might have learned it. And so to make sure that both the student and the parents are being supported at home, inking replay is a wonderful option. And so you can see here just in this quick video before I demo, you're going to select that area and you can see here it's replaying all of that writing that they did. And so I'm going to, in our OneNote, let me come back here. I'm just going to drop in a new page. And I'm going to call this, let's see, 1 second. Oh, open it in this one. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a new page. We're going to call this replay. And so I'm just going to come in with my pen. I'm using a pen on this device because that's what this device, the input that it has. You can also, if you look right here, this little guy right here is your draw with touch. So I could click on that and then I could actually just use my finger to draw on if I have a touch device. There's that. But I'm going to use my pen. You can also use your mouse. So if you want to come in and choose this and you want to write on the canvas as well. But I'm going to use my pen and I'm going to do the problem. 5 plus 3 plus 7 equals. And then we're going to come down here. I'm going to say, remember that you can make a 10. 7 plus 3 is 10. And then we're going to bring down our +5, bring it down, and then 10 plus 5 equals 15. So when you come into, once I've done this, I can go to, you're just going to be under the View tab. So the same place that the Immersive Reader is, you're going to come all the way over here to the right, and you see this one that says Replay. And when I click on that, it's going to ask me to select the area. So I'm going to do the area where I did all the writing. And then you can see here that it's literally replaying every time that I wrote down on the canvas. I will do this. I made a quick video for my students and parents on how to use the replay, but then if there's something specific that I want them to do on that OneNote page, I'll actually put some audio in. So I'll come in here and I'll put some audio and on top and say, remember when you're doing a problem like this, it's the best practice is to make a 10. So I did 7 plus 3 to make 10, then I add 5, and that's how I got 15. And so that's just another option to support students during this time, is doing the inking replay in OneNote. For this one, we're not going to have a demo experience for that. It's kind of something that you can explore, because I would like to get to these other two options. This one is very, very important, especially if you're going to be sending students PowerPoint presentations that you've recorded. And I will show you in one how to do that record option. But you can actually support students with subtitles and captions in a presentation. If you use the captions, you can actually do on-demand video playback of a presentation by recording it. And then I've been using this a lot. So I do live lessons with my students twice a week, but then the other 2 days of the week, I'll actually record a PowerPoint lesson and upload that to our learning management system. The other great thing is that it is your documentation of instruction. So if you're doing a PowerPoint, you're recording that lesson and sending it to students, you're having documentation that you yourself are providing instruction during this time. And then you can actually upload, you can do a presentation, record it, save it as an MP4, and then you can upload it to YouTube or Stream. So I am going to come out of here. I see that there are some questions popping up, and I will answer those as soon as I show you these last two things, because these are the last things in our presentation. And then I will come back and answer the question. All right. So if I were going to be recording this presentation for you, the one that we have here today, the option to turn on subtitles is going to be under your slideshow option. So if you click on slideshow, and you can see over here where it's going to have the option, it's going to say start subtitles. So when I click on this option, it's going to ask me, yes, I will be speaking in English, and maybe I would like these subtitles to come in a different language. So we'll come down here and choose Spanish. Just make sure that your microphone is coming in from the one that you want. So if you're wearing an external device, make sure that it recognizes that. Mine is coming from the audio on my computer itself. The first time you do start subtitles on a presentation, just know that it does take a minute, because it's recognizing all the text that's within your presentation. So this is going to take a minute to get started, but once you use it on a presentation, you never have to do this again. It's never going to take this long again. So while that's going, I'm going to let that come over here. The other option you have right here under the slideshow tab, and as soon as this is done, we'll come over here, is you can record the slideshow. This has just been a wonderful tool for me, especially if I'm trying to provide instruction that's not going to be live for students at that moment. You can actually record the presentation. And when you record, you can also, let's say you want to ink on top of a slide, or you're teaching a math lesson, it will record everything that you do in the PowerPoint, including writing on top of it. You can input different things in here while you record. And then hopefully this will finish up here in just a second. Amanda said, is there a way to edit the subtitles? Sometimes words are not translated correctly or made translate inappropriately. Most students are not. So the more that the students use and the more that you use this, it's a smart technology. Microsoft works very diligently to make sure that the software works as best as possible. Again, when we're talking about translation services, that's something that the company continually does. I mean, there's an entire department that just focuses on the input for that. So just know that. Just going to skip that part because there we go. So you can see here, it's going to start doing subtitles here at the bottom of my presentation. This is the one that we already had open. You do have some options in here while you're doing this. You can mute them if you don't want to see them. You also have some other options here, like maybe I want to hide the subtitles right now. I don't want to see them for this slide because there's already text here. You can show them again quickly and easily. You can also come in here into the settings option. When you're in the subtitles, you can change the settings. So I always have mine come below the slides because if they come over the slides, they're going to come up top and they're going to be running on top of your actual presentation. So I always have mine run at the bottom. Here you can make them larger or smaller. And so these are the settings that are inside the subtitles after you have started them. When you're ready, you can just stop the subtitles and then that will stop that part of your presentation. So this is a good way to do that. And then, and just as an option as well, there is also a translate option here. You can go in and translate the slides of your presentation into different languages. So that's all going to be under the slideshow, subtitles, and then the translation. And like I had said, the other wonderful thing is that you can record a slideshow. I can't click on this feature right now because I'm actually sharing my screen. But when you click here, you can open it up. It's going to open up a view. It's going to have different colored pens for you to look at. It kind of looks like a whiteboard. And you can go in and record a presentation. And like I said, this has been very helpful for my students and I right now during this online time. And so that is our presentation. I would like to go ahead and if you have a question that you would like to ask, please feel free to either drop it in the chat or if you would like to come off of mute, I would love for us to be able to answer any questions. The other thing is that you will get a form survey about this presentation next week. So if you would please fill it out. And let us know how you like today's presentation. And then again, I will drop some things into this channel. So I will put in a PDF version of this PowerPoint. That will also be in here. And then, like I said, I will drop in the MP4s of the Office Lens videos. So I'll drop them all three in separately. And please feel free today to tweet out to us today about today's presentation. This is at i2eEDU, and this is my handle at Pittman's Place. So please give us a shout out on Twitter. What I am going to do is go back to the slide that has my contact information so that you can have that. Again, please feel free to reach out to us. If you have any questions or concerns after today's presentations, I'm just going to come back here so that you can have. The yellow box over here has my contact information. This first one is my Twitter account. This one is my email if you have any questions after you get started. And then that is my LinkedIn right there. Does anybody have any questions? The one thing that I did want to show you very quickly that I'm sorry, I forgot about. There are some options. There is at the Microsoft Educator community, you can actually come in here and there are different paths to explore different things. So like right now they have a great remote teaching and learning section here. There was a great, and Robin, would you mind dropping into the chat the link to the new resources for special ed? That just came out. That's another wonderful page. But here you can see this is inclusive classroom specialization. So if you're looking to do that during this remote time, creating a digitally inclusive learning environment, these are all self-paced. So if I click here, I can start this learning path, and then I can start this course. And here's the wonderful Robin. This is just a wonderful quote from her. And then when you start the course, they're going to go in and have different things like here's your introduction. We're talking about consuming content, creating content, collaborative content, that kind of thing. So you can go in, and these are self-paced in order to support your students during this learning time and to support your own learning. The other great thing, and thank you, Robin, she just dropped in the link to this one. Let's take a look at this one. AKA. Oh, I obviously did something wrong. Let's go in here to Teams. So there we go. So Robin is fantastic. This is a page here about special education and accessibility resources for remote learning. You can come down here and you can look at all of these different options, teachers as consultants, connecting with students and parents. If you're looking at data collection, this is a very important one right now for SPED teachers, how to collect data in a remote environment. Creating accessible content, that'll look at a lot of the things that we looked at today. But this is a very comprehensive resource. And then you can even come down here and look at each section. So if you're looking for reading, writing, and math, executive functioning, mobility, vision, this is a all-inclusive resource, and it is absolutely incredible. So Robin had dropped that into the chat. That was the aka.ms/SPED accessibility. I am going to come back over here to our presentation just so you can see this. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Feel free to come off mute. I'm just looking through our chat as well. Some things about Office Lens. I noticed the Office Lens version uploaded. Amanda, what kind of device? Oh, that could have been when we did the. All right. I'm just looking through our chat to see if there's any other questions. Thank you very much for being here today. I know that accessibility in a remote learning time is definitely something that's challenging, especially providing, accommodations and making sure that everything's accessible for students. But the wonderful thing about these tools is that they're free to you. You do not have to pay for any of these. There are multiple ways to get to them, whether you're using a web-based device or a device that has desktop options. Robin also has dropped in the course code down here in the chat as well. And then Allie said, how long will the YouTube presentation be available for people to view later? Oh, so this presentation was recorded and we will be dropping that into our Teams channel here so you can come back and get it again. And as I said, after we're done with today's presentation, I will drop in the videos for Office Lens. And then I will also populate some different resources that we'll put into the Teams channel that you can access later. And thank you all so much for being here. This is something that I myself and Robin especially are very passionate about, making sure that our students have accessibility during the remote learning time. Please feel free to come back to the Teams channel if you have any questions. Also, if you have questions and you're in the Teams channel, if you want to drop it into the general channel, we can always come back and answer that later. And thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. And I hope that you guys got some good information about accessibility during remote learning. And again, if anybody has any questions or would like to come off mute, we're here.